You're using them right now. In fact, you use them every single minute of every single day, and you probably never even think about them. I'm talking about semiconductors, and we're about to see how these tiny little slivers of silicon became maybe the most important and for sure the most contested resource on the entire planet. Okay, let's get into it. You know, for the last 100 years, the answer to that question was simple. It was oil, right? It powered our cars, heated our homes, it fueled entire economies. But today the answer is different. There is a new resource out there, and when it disappears, things don't just slow down. They come to a dead stop. And that resource? It's the microchip. So, first up, let's really dig into just how deeply these chips are embedded in literally everything we do. They're the true invisible infrastructure of the 21st century. And here's the crucial difference. Think of it like this. Oil is kind of like the muscle of the modern world. It makes things go. But chips are the brain. They provide the cognition. So when you disrupt the oil supply, sure, things get slower, they get more expensive, but when you disrupt the chip supply, the brain shuts down. The whole system just ceases to function. And look, we're not just talking about your smartphone or your laptop here. Every single critical industry you can think of is completely 100% dependent on semiconductors. A modern hospital ICU, the power grid, our entire banking system, it all runs on chips. I mean, to put it into perspective, a single new car can have up to 3,000 different chips inside it. 3,000. So what happens when this invisible infrastructure that we all rely on suddenly breaks? Well, that brings us to the really dramatic part of the story, what a complete, cascading failure actually looks like. And you know what? We all got a terrifying real-world preview of this just a few years ago. The great chip shortage that kicked off in 2020, that wasn't some minor inconvenience. No way. It was a global shockwave that brought entire industries to their knees. So what was the culprit? What was the one little missing piece that could grind these multi-billion-dollar corporations to a halt? Was it some incredibly complex, expensive supercomputer? Nope. It was this. $2. That's right. The part that was missing, the little component that forced giants like Ford and GM to shut down production lines and lose billions, was a simple $2 microcontroller for something as basic as a power window. And that just perfectly illustrates how terrifyingly fragile this whole system really is. And here's the really dangerous part of the equation. There's this fundamental asymmetry. A shortage can happen in an instant, a factory fire, a pandemic, a geopolitical move. But you can't just flip a switch and make more chips. Building a new semiconductor factory, what they call a fab, is this monumental task. It costs over $15 billion and takes 3 to 5 years. There's just no surge capacity. So you've got this huge production problem, right? Well, that leads to an even bigger geopolitical nightmare. The supply chain isn't just slow to build. It's also dangerously concentrated in a few terrifying choke points. So the real question is, who's actually in control? Okay, to really get a handle on this new world order, you just need to know 3 key players. There's a manufacturer in Taiwan, a machine maker in the Netherlands, and a massive consumer, China, that is desperately trying to catch up. These 3, together, create the single points of failure that literally keep world leaders up at night. Okay, first, let's talk about TSMC. When we talk about the most advanced chips, I mean the ones that power AI, our best smartphones, our most advanced weapon systems, one company, on one island, makes over 90% of them. 90. Think about that. There is no backup. If TSMC goes offline for any reason, the global economy faces a crisis that could honestly make 2008 look like a little hiccup. So how does TSMC pull this off? Well, they use a machine that is arguably the single most complex piece of technology humanity has ever built. It's called an EUV lithography machine, and only one company on the entire planet, ASML in the Netherlands, can make them. Each one costs over $350 million, and without them, no country can build a factory for advanced chips. Period. End of story. And this brings us to China. It is the world's biggest chip consumer by far, buying up about 35% of the global supply. But its ability to actually produce the most advanced chips itself, it's basically zero. This vulnerability isn't just an inconvenience for Beijing, it's an existential threat. And it is the main technological reason why control over Taiwan, and therefore TSMC, is so absolutely critical to their national ambitions. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? The world has finally woken up to this terrifying reality. And what we're seeing now is a global scramble for semiconductor independence. And believe me, this isn't just about industrial policy anymore. This is about national survival. If you've heard about things like the US CHIPS Act, this is why it exists. It is a direct response to this massive vulnerability. The US, China, Europe, India, every single major power is now pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into building their own domestic supply chains, trying to break free from these choke points. Because when you boil it all down, this isn't really a tech story, it's a power story. The nations that can reliably build and get their hands on these tiny pieces of silicon are the ones that are going to be able to build next-generation weapons, sustain their modern economies, and lead the world in artificial intelligence. And the ones that can't, well, they're going to get left behind. So as we wrap this up, just remember this. For decades, we measured global power in barrels of oil. But the power of the 21st century, it's forged in silicon. The defining geopolitical question for the next decade isn't about who has the oil, but who has the fabs. Because the country that controls chip manufacturing, well, that's the country that controls the future.